When I first moved into the old brick apartment building on Marlowe Street, I was just relieved to have found a place I could afford. The city was expensive, and most apartments were either falling apart or outrageously overpriced. This one was small but clean, tucked in a quiet neighborhood. I met most of the other tenants within the first week, exchanging the usual introductions in the hallway or the lobby. But my neighbor across the hall was different. I first saw him the day I moved in. I was carrying a box into my apartment when I caught sight of him standing in his doorway watching me. He was tall and thin, with pale skin and short, neatly combed hair. He wore a dark gray sweater and black trousers. Nothing unusual about his clothes, but there was something about his face, his eyes that stopped me. He didn't blink, not once. His gaze followed me, steady and unbroken, as I disappeared into my apartment. Over the next few days, I noticed him more often. He would be in the hallway when I left for work, standing by his door as if he had been waiting for me. He'd offer a polite smile, but his eyes would remain locked on mine, unblinking. At first, I told myself it was just his way. Some people blink less than others. Maybe he was just socially awkward. But then the incidents began. One night, I woke up at around 3 a.m. to the sound of soft tapping. I sat up in bed listening. The tapping came again, rhythmic and deliberate, from my front door. I got up and peered through the peephole and froze. He was standing there, just standing, staring directly at my door. His face was expressionless, his eyes wide and still. He didn't knock, didn't call out, just stared. I backed away from the door, heart pounding. After a few minutes, I checked again, and he was gone. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it must have been a dream or a misunderstanding, but it kept happening. Sometimes I would catch him looking through the peephole from his side of the hall. Other times I would open my door to find him standing there, as if he had been about to knock. Then came the night I truly understood something was wrong. It was late, and I was returning from work. The hallway was dimly lit, shadows pooling in the corners. As I approached my door, I noticed his apartment door was open just a crack. I heard a faint whispering, but it wasn't like a normal voice. It was layered, like several people speaking at once in a language I didn't recognize. I slowed my steps, peering toward the door. His pale face appeared in the gap, eyes locking onto mine. And then, his smile widened, far too wide for a human face. The skin around his mouth stretched unnaturally, revealing a row of sharp, grayish teeth. I bolted into my apartment, locking every bolt and chain. For the rest of the night, I heard faint scratching at my door, as if someone was dragging their nails across the wood. The next morning, I went to the building manager to complain, but she looked confused. "There's no one living in the unit across from you," she said. I insisted there was, describing him in detail, but she shook her head. "That apartment's been empty for months. The last tenant moved out in December." When I demanded to see for myself, she reluctantly unlocked the door to the unit. Inside, it was completely empty, no furniture, no sign of life. Dust coated the floor, and the air smelled stale. But there, in the middle of the living room floor, was a single gray sweater neatly folded, and a small scrap of paper. On it, in cramped, uneven handwriting, were the words, "I see you when you sleep." It was year 2013. When I first moved into the old brick apartment building on Rosedale Street, I thought I'd found the perfect place. The rent was suspiciously low, yes, but the building had a certain charm. Creaky wooden stairs, antique brass railings, and tall windows that looked out over a small courtyard filled with struggling rose bushes. My unit 2A sat at the end of the second-floor hallway. Across from me was room 2B. The door to 2B was always closed, and in my first week, I never saw anyone go in or out. That in itself wasn't strange. City neighbors often keep to themselves. What was strange was the sound. Every night, sometime between 1 and 3 a.m., I'd hear something from 2B. Not music, not a TV, something like murmuring. At first, I chalked it up to the way old buildings carry noise, but it kept happening at exactly the same hours, every single night. One Thursday evening, while carrying groceries up the stairs, I passed the landlord, Mrs. Klein, a thin woman in her 70s with a habit of glancing over her shoulder while talking. I asked her casually about 2B. She hesitated, eyes darting toward the far end of the hall. "Oh, that one's been empty for years," she said quickly. "No tenant. Pipes make noise, you know." Then she hurried past me without looking back. Empty for years. That made no sense. I'd heard the murmuring almost every night, and sometimes, if I listened closely enough, I swore I could hear slow, deliberate footsteps pacing from one end of the apartment to the other. The next night, curiosity won out. Around 2:15 a.m., I pressed my ear to the wall that separated my bedroom from 2B. The murmuring was there again, soft, rhythmic, almost like chanting. The words were too muffled to make out, but the tone sent an unnatural chill crawling down my back. I knocked lightly. The sound stopped instantly. The silence was worse than the murmuring. It stretched on, pressing in on me until I stepped back from the wall and tried to sleep. 2 nights later, something woke me. My apartment was cold, much colder than it should have been for early autumn. The clock read 3:06 a.m. The murmuring had returned, but now it was louder, almost directly behind my headboard. I sat up, heart pounding, and realized the sound wasn't coming from the wall anymore. It was in my apartment. I flicked on the lamp. My bedroom was empty. The door was locked. But from the far corner, where the shadows were thickest, came a whisper. "You shouldn't knock." I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. The corner was empty, but the air felt thick there, as if something invisible stood in my way. That morning, I went straight to Mrs. Klein's unit. She opened the door only a crack. "I need to know about 2B, I demanded. "Someone's in there, or something." Her face paled. "Don't go near that door again," she said. "Some rooms keep their tenants even when the tenants are gone." She shut the door in my face. I couldn't let it go. I started keeping notes, times, sounds, temperature changes. The pattern was always the same. Cold air, chanting, silence if I got too close. But one night, the pattern broke. It was raining hard, and I'd just gone to bed when I heard a faint knock on my own door. 3 slow knocks. I peeked through the peephole. The hallway was empty, except for the door to 2B, which now stood slightly open. I knew I shouldn't, but the darkness inside the room seemed to draw me forward. I stepped into the hallway, water dripping from the ceiling above, and pushed the door open. Inside, 2B was nothing like I expected. The walls were bare concrete, damp and covered in strange looping symbols. In the center of the room sat a single wooden chair facing the far wall. And in that chair was a man, or what had once been a man. His skin was gray, stretched thin over sharp bones, his eyes milky and unblinking. His mouth moved, forming those same murmuring words I'd heard for weeks. I couldn't understand the language, but I knew I wasn't supposed to hear it. Then he stopped. Slowly, his head turned toward me. "You heard me," he said, voice dry as dead leaves. "Now you stay." The door slammed behind me. When I bought my first home, I thought I'd gotten lucky with the neighborhood. Quiet streets, friendly faces, and my closest neighbor was Mrs. Evelyn Porter. She was in her early 60s, always wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat in the daytime, and her front yard looked like something out of a gardening magazine. Roses of every color climbed over her trellis, and the smell of lavender drifted over the fence in the evenings. We met the day I moved in. I was unloading boxes when she appeared on the other side of the garden fence. "Welcome to Maple Drive," she said warmly, holding a basket of cookies. "If you need anything, I'm right next door." I liked her immediately. She had that calm, small-town kindness about her. We'd chat every few days, mostly about the weather, my new job at the hardware store, or the latest pests bothering her roses. She seemed normal, perfectly normal. For the first 3 weeks, nothing was strange. But then one night I woke up at around 1 a.m. and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. My window looked out toward her backyard, and that's when I saw her. Mrs. Porter was in the garden, but she wasn't tending flowers. She was digging. The moonlight caught her silver hair as she leaned into the earth, scooping out dirt with a short-handled spade. The hole was already waist deep, and she worked slowly, like she'd been doing it for hours. Her posture was stiff, almost mechanical. I slid the window open and called out softly, "Mrs. Porter?" She didn't look up, didn't even pause, just kept digging, the spade sinking into the soil with a dull thud. Feeling uneasy, I closed the window. Maybe she was just replanting something, but at 1 in the morning? The next day, I checked her yard while taking my trash out. The hole was gone. The dirt had been smoothed over neatly, like nothing had ever been disturbed. But her roses, the same ones that had been blooming beautifully the day before, were all wilted. Their petals had turned black around the edges. Over the next week, I saw her outside almost every night, always after dark. She never turned on her porch light, just worked under the dim glow of the moon. The holes kept appearing and disappearing, each one in a different spot. And the smell. At first it was faintly sweet, like overripe fruit. But as the days passed, it turned sour, heavy, like something rotting underground. By the 6th night, I couldn't take it anymore. Around midnight, I heard something new. 3 slow knocks, not on my door, on the fence. I froze. Another 3 knocks. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The air was damp, the kind that sticks to your skin. My beam swept over the fence, and there she was. Mrs. Porter stood just on the other side, her face far too close to the wooden slats. "You hear them too?" she asked. Her smile was stretched too wide, her teeth small and crooked. Her eyes looked glassy, like she hadn't slept in days. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice unsteady. "They get lonely," she said softly. "They like when I talk to them." I didn't know what to say. I glanced at the ground and saw that the earth right beside her feet had been dug up again. She stepped back, motioning for me to come closer. The smell was overpowering now, sweet and rotten all at once. "You should meet them," she whispered. Before I could answer, the dirt in the hole shifted. Something was moving beneath it. The soil bulged, then cracked open. A pale hand reached out, then another, and another. Too many hands. They were thin, almost skeletal, with skin the color of candle wax. The fingers twitched and curled, grasping at the night air. Mrs. Porter leaned toward me. "I think they like you." I stumbled backward, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly over her face. She didn't look like a sweet old neighbor anymore. There was something hungry in her expression. The hands kept coming. I ran. Behind me, I heard her voice calling softly. "Don't worry, James. They'll find you."